Welcome to the Friendly Geordies podcast present Shawarma FM. We do not have Jordan for you, but we have someone infinitely better.
That might be putting mayo on it, but
No, we have Roshan from Toilet Paper Australia. If you haven't checked out Toilet Paper Australia, make sure that you go on Instagram and check it out. And your podcast is called
Talking Shit by Toilet Paper Australia.
Cool.
Talking Shit by Toilet Paper Australia, which is available in wherever you listen to podcasts. Let's start the pod, my friend. We have a lot to talk about.
Honestly, it's kind of weird. I've listened to you guys for years.
That's so
years
sweet.
now. Like,
That's
I'd probably
sweet.
say, like, were you guys running pre-COVID as well?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
We've been doing
2019. It was 2019, my last year of bachelor's. Yeah.
We've been doing this
2019.
We've been doing this since pre-puberty, probably.
And well, I guess the way we've sort of described it is, you know, you guys and what you do at Friendly Geordies kind of walked so we could run.
Oh,
you know, like
that's
we.
so sweet.
I'm-
we can't take credit for it. It's really him.
Well, I mean, like even, you know, Jordan and the work that you guys do, it's just sort of, it's really interesting because you kind of laid the groundwork for a lot of content creators in the space, like a lot.
Sick.
If you talk to anyone who's sort of, you know, vaguely on, I guess, the quote unquote left of Australian politics,
Yeah.
you know, they've taken some level of inspiration from what you guys do. Like
Look, I love taking credit for stuff I haven't done. So,
Exactly.
but no,
I
like
appreciate that.
it is a bit of a pinch me moment to be here,
dude,
Like,
that's crazy.
This is sick.
Ditto.
Yeah.
It's really. I mean, I've been.
And we really appreciate your work too, man.
Yeah, I've
Thanks,
been
man.
across
Thank you.
your. I mean, I've been across the Instagram, your Instagram forever. What seems like for a long time, and apart from obviously the news and current affairs and whatnot, and the sort of journalistic side of it, it cracks me up. It's funny it's like
Yeah.
very, very funny. Like I find myself laughing out loud, literally. So you
Yeah.
know, which is it doesn't happen all the time with, you know, a lot of these sort of organizations and pages. At least for me, I've got a, I don't know, weird twisted sense of humor, so it definitely tickles that itch for me.
Yeah.
So,
I think if you don't laugh, you cry. And it's almost like, you know, there is a bit of a dry sarcasm to,
Yeah.
you know, having takes in Australian politics.
Yeah.
You know, I always joke, especially with like, you know, Pauline, the hardest part about representing the people is, you know, filling up the Gulf Stream, you know, like it's, you know, just, it's just sort of so blatantly unserious at times.
Actually, let's start off with Pauline then, because you know that is a very fair point. I mean, she's taking Gina Reinhardt's jet like, you know, it's an Uber ride. However, it seems to me that criticism does not work on her supporters as much.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think, especially when it comes to Australian politics, you really need to push a message for a certain amount of time, and then it becomes sort of an accepted norm. I think a lot of people who are voting One Nation are understandably quite frustrated with the two-party system. I think everyone kind of knows that. I'm just sort of...
But they're also like under the assumption that unbridled mining is awesome. Like the fact that Gina Reinhardt is supporting Pauline, they're cool with that. Now there's obviously like, you know, some kind of cognitive issues over there where you're not understanding behind the scenes how that's affecting you. But that criticism, I think they're perfectly okay with. They're like,
Yeah. I think it's interesting as well because they're a very hard audience to reach. So if you look at One Nation's polling, you look at the data, and again, this is just the pure numbers sort of data scientist in me that's talking.
Yeah.
It's, you know, there are some young people getting involved in One Nation.
I was going to ask that. What is the age demographic? Oh, but anyway, I'll let you.
It's very heavily Gen X and very heavily Boomer at the moment.
Right.
It's pretty similar to what you're seeing with Reform UK. It's really remarkable because unlike mainland Europe and the United States, where you see a lot of young people, especially young men, getting involved in their sort of, you know, right-wing populism, you see, especially in the data at this stage, again, this could change. It's very, very early in the piece, but One Nation is really polling well amongst rural, older men. There are a lot of, there are some exceptions to that, but typically the typical One Nation voter is a rural to outer suburban man over the age of 45 to 50.
Yeah.
And again, typical, I say that because there are absolutely exceptions. They aren't polling great. They're still in fourth place in a lot of polls on primary vote amongst voters.
Do you think
under
these
35.
polls are exaggerated? A lot of the high 20 polls?
Look, I do think there are some that may be. Like Demos, the polling firm, I've got some criticisms of their methodology. I believe they calculated a Labor One Nation two-party preferred when they first did it on the election results from Hunter. Now, Hunter's such a unique electorate up in Newey, or up in that... Or
Hunter Valley?
Or Hunter Valley, sorry. Yeah. Where I think it's Dan Repicoli is the candidate there or the MP there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just sort of like, that's such a unique electorate. Like, you can't be using that for my electorate of Melbourne.
Yeah,
you can't be using that.
Well, definitely not for your electorate of Melbourne.
You know what I mean? Like, that swing is just not happening there.
Yeah.
So your electorate, actually, just as a side question, apparently there's rumors that your electorate might move to Victorian socialists.
Oh, I would say that's probably overblown.
That's overblown.
So
that's my common friend being a bit too optimistic.
Don't get me wrong. In the state election, they've got Jordan Vandenlam, Purple Pingers, who is running for the Victorian Socialists for the seat of Melbourne. Now, my electorate's Richmond, which is just above that in the state election. He does a lot of work with regards to renters' rights. He's got quite a large following on socials, I think bigger than ours. Really love the guy, fantastic bloke, and I've known him for a while. I just don't think they've got the pull just yet to pull that off. I think the Greens are running quite a strong campaign. They consistently have in Melbourne, and I think at the federal level, Adam Bant losing his seat probably was a bit of an anomaly. I think that
What was that about? Actually, can you help us diagnose what
absolutely.
the problem there was?
Just the big toothbrush, eh?
Yeah, look, I think that was funny. That was real good. I did like it. Was kind of unserious, bringing it around. I think it can come down to a lot of things. And again, I say this, we sort of sit across, we've got friends in Labor, we've got friends in the Greens, we've got friends sort of across even the Teal independents and sort of all across the political spectrum. I guess the reason I believe Adam Bant sort of lost Melbourne was kind of a few things. There was a redistricting that included a few areas sort of south of the Yarra River, so you're looking sort of close
Port
to
Melbourne?
Close to there. Yeah. So
Bloody
probably the suburbs.
gerrymandering gets them every time.
Yeah. So close to the suburbs, a little bit sort of adjacent to that.
Right.
And they were quite pro-Labor, and then in turn, some suburbs north got moved into the electorate a little bit further up. So, which was like, sort of your Brunswicks, your Carlton Norths, which are very heavily Greens.
Yeah, Brunswick's the cool place.
Yeah, it's great.
The coolest.
Have you been down Sydney Road?
Yeah.
Mate, how good is it?
The record stores are lit.
The Retreat Hotel is like my go-to.
I like Sydney
Love
Road
that
a lot.
spot. Yeah.
What do you, just before we go on, my brother just moved to Melbourne.
Yeah.
He's in, not Flemington, starts with F. Damn
Fitzroy.
it.
Fitzroy?
No.
Anyways, doesn't matter.
Damn it, I'll find out.
Please,
yeah.
yeah.
But I want to. It's kind of like east of the city. Anyway, I'll ask you after. It's a cool area.
If you were an artistic tattoo artist with face tats, where would you move? Footscray.
Yeah, Footscray.
Is it cool?
Yeah.
That's where he is.
Footscray's great. Yeah. There's some real good Vietnamese food there too.
He said there's a really good market there.
Footscray Market's so good, man. I love it.
Anyway, I don't want to divulge into
so good.
food, but yeah. Well, I'm glad that he's in a good
great.
spot.
Yeah.
So you were talking about the Greens because there's an assumption that maybe they're going to perform badly again next time around. What do you think about that?
Look, I think, so to sort of continue on from what we were saying, I think they've got to learn from, I think one mistake I think that was maybe made was they were running on a pretty solid platform for most of the time leading up to the elections. They had Max Chandler-Mather talking about housing, which again, universal problem that everyone is facing. Someone's got a problem with the cost of living relating to housing, whether it's your bills, your rent, your mortgage with interest rates, anything. I think everyone can bond over the fact that they've got something in housing that's a little bit too expensive right now. So great campaign, and I thought he was a very good speaker with regards to it. But then all of a sudden, I think they switched to dental and Medicare probably a little bit too suddenly, a little bit too hard. I think it was a really, I think everyone's got rent on their mind in a cost of living crisis. Yeah. But I'm not thinking about my teeth if I can't pay my rent.
Sure, yeah.
So I think maybe they sort of switched over to that a little bit too hard.
Right. Is he still in?
No, he's not.
He's out, okay.
Yeah, so, he's not. He was... I got along with him. We interviewed him on our podcast, and we've got a really good relationship with the Greens, and I really enjoy working with them. So that was probably the thing I thought they maybe could have done better was sticking to housing, sticking to bread and butter stuff would have really, I think they probably would have held the seat. I think they finished just behind Labor on primary vote, which meant that because the Liberals performed so badly, which is the final part, it meant that the preference flows from the Liberal Party went predominantly to Labor over the Greens, which I think got Sarah Whitty over the line.
Right.
That's interesting. Well, that
Damn,
means
you know your stuff, dude. You could be like a political analyst.
We pour over the data a lot. Mate, I'm a massive stats nerd. I love this.
That's impressive. I mean, you and Jordan, I think, have that in common, definitely.
I think so. Yeah. That's the thing that sort of drew me into Friendly Geordies as well, is the level of research is deep.
Yeah, man.
It's deep.
It is.
Yeah.
I agree.
it's a lot of hours just being by yourself and having no social life.
Correct.
Trust me.
It's so funny comparing, because like sometimes we put content out and it's like, it'll be like 3 seconds of work, and people are like, you must spend a lot of time doing this, and I'm like, dude, I literally made that meme taking a shit. Like, it's so funny. Like, people will literally like be like, you know, oh, you must spend a lot of time doing it. I'm like, haha, liberal funny, you know? Like,
It's like
I believe that's what the
insights.
Greens also said about their campaign policies. I literally came up with it while taking a shit.
Look, I mean, I quite like him. Adam's a nice man.
I gather that you have a bigger soft spot for the Greens than
I
what you
do. Yes.
I think, Jordan.
I have a very,
yeah.
I don't know, I have a very basic sort of disagreement with them, which started from the beginning, which is that the whole environmental policy, as it was growing, it used to be a bipartisan thing. In the 80s, Republicans were talking about climate and environment. They're talking about it in terms of pollution. And then at some point, obviously, it became more partisan. And I think a party like Greens was such a good thing for just being a lobby group. Instead of having multiple different opinions on different things, if it was just a lobbying group, I think maybe it could have been a bipartisan thing. And now we're in a situation where if you're talking about, you know, reducing emissions, you're automatically branded into like the left side of politics, which I think was a disservice. It's such a big issue, which applies to everyone.
Yeah. I think the way I see it, because, you know, I'm sort of relatively new to the political space, is especially because I've grown up and like, you know, I've really come of age politically during the whole populist wave and sort of the fragmenting of politics. So I guess...
How old are you?
I'm 28.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So I think the way I see it is it's in a very sport lens. Again, with coaching footy, I always describe as, you know, you have a role to play on field, and I think politically as well, I think the Greens do have a role to play in that space. I think as well, even today, for example, I'm not sure if you guys saw, there was a by-election in the UK. So the Greens won over Reform, which is the equivalent of the Greens beating One Nation directly in Australia.
Is that right?
Yeah, and they won, like, it was meant to be neck and neck. It was like Greens 25%. Obviously, they've got the cooked first past the post system, not preference voting.
Right. Okay,
But so it's just whoever gets the most votes wins.
Yeah.
So it was like Greens, Reform, Labor, all on like 25, 26%. The Greens got 40%.
Whoa.
And Reform got about 24%.
Is this like a national election?
Just a by-election.
So that's just
someone resigned from UK Labor, but basically
picked up the seat.
Yeah, picked up the seat. So look, I do think that it's important to note when things like that happen, there is a role for parties like the Greens or even independent politicians, and you know, obviously the Labor Party still, where One Nation and populism can be beaten. It's got to be communicated well to different audiences. Like, Labor's not winning Wentworth. Labor's not winning in Warringah or Goldstein or Kooyong. But I think that what Teal politicians do well in those seats is they're from the area, they can talk to that sort of audience, and they can beat that type of populism because they know the area better. And again, we were talking about sort of the talent pool that One Nation has. That's their biggest weakness. They don't have people from the area who have that sort of understanding of the community as well.
Is this in Victoria you're talking about?
All across.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Warringah and is like, you know, northern beaches and...
Warringah here. Yeah.
And then I think Wentworth's like North Shore.
Wentworth's just Bondi.
That's Malcolm Turnbull's old electorate.
Yeah.
And then, Goldstein and the equivalent electorates for us are Goldstein and Kooyong, which are both formerly... I mean, Goldstein was formerly Teal. It's got Tim Wilson, the most insufferable Liberal I've... Like, honestly, if Labor lost and Tim Wilson lost, I would have been like, okay, we got to win here.
Right.
Like, I do not like that man at all.
Okay, what's wrong with Tim Wilson?
He feels like he is owed the seat because he had, like, in my opinion, because he had it for a very long time. There's a very big sense of entitlement, in my opinion, from him.
A bit like Adam Band?
I wouldn't say that. I can see you prodding there. Oh, no.
Welcome to Sydney, mate. No,
Yeah,
I'm joking.
yeah, so I do think, that is, and especially, with the Farah by-election coming, there's Michelle Milthorpe running, who's the independent there. I have a lot of confidence that I think she can get the job done because, again, I think she's got a good understanding of the electorate. Sure, people may feel heard by One Nation, but do they feel understood by One Nation? I think that's the question that people who are contesting, the populists who are contesting One Nation...
One Nation doesn't understand.
Well, it's
One
just sort
Nation
of
cannot comprehend things.
Yeah.
I think there's just a massive expectation of them. Imagine if they actually formed government. They would be scared.
Well, we've got precedent as to what happens when they get any form of office.
Oh, really? What happened?
In the late 90s, One Nation got 11 seats in Queensland.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
They fell apart within 2 years. And the party pretty much almost collapsed totally. They almost ceased to exist pretty much because of that.
Right. Don't you think a lot of these seats, though, I feel like they're so baked in, you can kind of tell who's going to... Like, I always feel like Queensland will have... Queensland's a mass. I know Brisbane's quite Greens and that area.
Yeah,
but then, like, it seems to me as soon as you go regional, it's like One Nation. And then in Sydney, like, the North Shore, which is kind of like, I don't know what the equivalent is in Melbourne, but like... old money and stuff.
Turak. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Like that change from the Libs to the Teals was like, I couldn't believe it. Because I kind of grew up around there and I was just like, that was crazy to me. But that shift kind of makes more sense than those seats, like you said, Wurrunga or Sinai's ever flipping to One Nation. You know what I mean? Like I think at least in Sydney, there's some wiggle room, but I don't think there's going to be, I think the eastern suburbs will always vote Liberal. North Shore, maybe more Teal, inner city Greens, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just. This is not a profound point.
Yeah, I do think that they
can make change. Maybe seats do flip more regularly than I.
Yeah,
realized.
I do think every now and then there is that sort of realignment, and I think we are going through that right now.
Right. True,
But yeah, I do think that there very much is. I do think there is an avenue to beat One Nation very clearly. It's just a matter of whether or not the right candidates in those areas can sort of play their role and actually like get the job done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And talk in a way that people want to be spoken to as well. Like we always joke, there's a little Easter egg that we have in TPA. We don't use the word rhetoric at all because who the fuck knows what that means? Like, come on.
Rhetoric.
We don't like to use, the whole thing is just like, if you can find a shorter equivalent for a word, if you can get your message across in a more concise way, that's not dumbing it down or talking down to people, put it out. And I think, if someone can really talk to, people who in a way that's like, not seeming over their head or too jargony, but still gets across the message and they don't feel like they're being spoken down to or in a condescending way, that person's going to win every single time. I think One Nation right now is doing that well, but I do think there is room for someone to do that from a progressive point of view, and they're going to win every time.
Who was the seat that just won in Victoria? We talked about it last week. He's the one saying like when you...
Oh, Farah.
Yeah, when
it's
you
not
retire.
Victoria.
Was it Victoria?
It's on the border. It's Albury, I think.
Albury,
yeah.
Albury, Wodonga, but Wodonga isn't part of that. So it's actually New South Wales.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So Albury, dude, it's a massive electorate.
It's huge.
It's the size of a country. It's a European country.
Honestly, I've got a lot of respect for politicians that do all the driving around. Like,
I was thinking that. I was like, I know there's like 10 people that live there. I get that aspect, but like, by God, it would be such a long trek to campaign.
What's the electorate in Darwin, in the Northern Territory, that makes up everything that's not Darwin? It's an effort for electoral staff to do like remote, ballots there. That's absurd. Insane. Yeah.
It's crazy. So because of that Farah by-election, I think everyone's looking at how One Nation's going to perform over there.
Yeah. I think that'll be an interesting test. I think, you can sort of take a few things out from there. It's more like, I do feel like this is One Nation's election to lose, purely because it is a rural electorate. It is typically voted Liberal. Or National.
It's like birthplace of the Liberal Party, right?
I think so.
Isn't Albury?
Actually, it is.
What is it actually?
Menzies conference or something happened over there. It is what
Really?
it is,
I didn't know that. Yeah. I know Victoria used to be their hub for the longest time, and then it's not really been ever since. But That's really fascinating. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but it is. But Albury, that area is. I think there's an assumption that it's kind of regional, but I've been there, dude. It's not. It's
not
kind of.
that
It's pretty. It's urbanized just a large
Yeah,
extent.
it is. Those rural hubs are like, they're like big suburbs.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I go out to Ballarat and I'm like, I do feel like I'm in the burbs.
Yeah.
Or if you go to Geelong, like a lot of people will joke that Geelong is an extension of Melbourne.
It kind of is.
It's got a little bit. It's got a bit of a CBD. Like you can't be having high rises in a country town anymore.
Yeah.
Geelong is our Wollongong. Wollongong is very
interesting.
Totally.
Also, it's so expensive to go to the footy there. It's like $70.
What do you mean? Just to go to a game?
Geelong Cats games are expensive.
Really?
They got their own.
It's because they keep winning.
Yeah, well, I mean, they got their own boutique stadium. They're the only ones that have an actual home ground.
I was at the Geelong Swans final in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And the Geelong Brisbane game.
Yeah,
where they got
that was
smashed each time.
Yeah. Well, half my family's
hundreds of dollars.
Half my
to be
family's
embarrassed.
Brisbane, so they've been having a great time. So
I bet.
Yeah. But I do think it's been historically quite a conservative electorate, Farah.
I looked at the last election results, and the interesting thing was Susan Lee won by 45,000 votes.
Think so.
And the next one was the Independent.
Yes.
Who, by the way, isn't like a One Nation type. She's more of a Tealish Independent.
Yeah.
And she got 30,000.
Yeah.
Labor was third, and most of Labor preferences went to the Independent. That's why she came so close.
And I do think it's interesting because the Nationals are contesting Farah as well, because that used to be a national seat, if I'm not
They're
mistaken.
getting rinsed, surely.
Oh, the Nationals,
They're done.
Their brand is in trouble.
They're done because Barnaby's
One
left.
Nation's eating their lunch.
Yeah.
Like they are competing for the exact same electorates.
Which party do you think's more cooked?
The Nats.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, they're finished.
I agree.
I think the Liberals can survive this. I genuinely think, and I think they will. In some way, they could be reduced to a handful of seats, but they'll persist. It's like the French Socialists. Like they're reduced to what? Like they were a major party. They have like 10 seats now.
Right.
But they'll survive in some way, or they might rebrand like they have historically. But the Nats, I think they're like, this is survival mode for them. They were polling, when the coalition split up, it was interesting because the polling firms were putting out Queensland LNP, National Primary and Liberal Party Primary, and the Nats are polling at like 1%.
Whoa.
Like you're looking at you're not winning a seat.
I think even like cowboys know that and cowgirls know that the Nats are just ripping off regional people with mono business and
Dude, the Cowboys, the problem with regional Australia is the Cowboys unfortunately are unemployed. That's why they're voting for One Nation now.
Or maybe that's what
The regional economy has really shifted in the last 10 years to the point where...
But isn't it just public knowledge that the Nationals, will just... are in the pockets of big ag and monoculture and
they always
farming.
were. That's not a new thing. They always were. But the thing is, those big corporations that they were representing were still employing a bunch of people in those areas.
Oh, so
at least the perception was that it works for.
Sure.
But now all of those people are unemployed. Machines are doing most of the farming work in regional areas, and these farms are sizes again of countries. They're massive corporate farms. So there's essentially an underclass of people that maybe used to be cowboys at some point or farmers. Maybe their parents sold off their land some time ago to these. There's a whole bunch. So the employment class is shrinking.
Right.
And they're obviously going to move towards something that represents them.
Gotcha, yeah.
And Nationals are just representing their ex-bosses at this point.
Right.
Exactly right. Yeah. So I do think they're in trouble. But I really think as well with regards to... this by-election, in terms of what it means, I mean, this would basically, in my opinion, symbolise One Nation taking over the Nats if they win. I don't think that's too seismic.
No, I don't think so.
Because I do think,
Nats were pretty
it's quite
themselves.
likely. But what I think this is a really significant moment for the Teals if they win this. If Teal independents can do this, because they win a particular kind of electorate at the moment. They win upper middle class to upper class.
It's like mums,
very professional.
Like mums that care about climate change.
They win in areas
very
that,
white collar areas.
Yeah, they win in areas that we can't afford yet.
Exactly. Yeah. Look, I'm not buying into Iraqi or
If you
South
can
anytime
afford
soon.
it, if you can afford it, Teals are not in a big movement over there.
But what this shows is that they can win a different kind of candidate.
Yeah.
It shows that they can win people who are from sort of working class, rural, sort of even, the cowboy sort of background. and they can win a different type of person.
Teals can?
Well, if they do this.
If they do.
If they do this, it means that they can. And it also shows that One Nation can be beaten. Because I do think there is a narrative. I do believe there is a bit of manufactured consent going on in the media. There is absolutely, I'd probably say, you know, probably anywhere from 50 to 80% of One Nation's rise, completely, you know, organic, people frustrated. They've just found out about Pauline Hanson. I think, yeah, she's right.
You got to hear this. He sent me a video of his workplace. So he just started working at this, like, you want to explain what your job is?
I have various jobs. It's what would you call it? Blue collar? Just
it's blue collar as, all right? So he sends me a video. It's so fucking funny, dude. So he's in like a van, like he's being kidnapped, right? He's just sitting, there's a bunch of tools around him and he's not saying anything. There's like his colleagues, these like old tradie guys who are driving and they're talking and their conversation is literally this. It's like, mate, Albo went to that fucking Ramadan thing. It's going to be mate. And he's just sitting there and he's just looking at what do I do? Do I kill myself?
And there was one they're talking about Albo and I won't say the word, but it's like, he's a C word. He's like, he's a C word, like loudly. I'm like, all right, I know, I heard, yes. I understand.
It's just so funny because like this is the thing that was sad and funny at the same time, that like there's no doubt that these guys are frustrated and there are a lot of genuine issues that the economy is facing, but at the same time, like, what does our reptilian brain focus on? He went to Ramadan night, Mark. It's like, bruh, there's so many more issues that are way more relevant to your shitty life than that Ramadan market.
And I do think as well, you know, we don't need people to be, you know, fully, you know, that kind of person. They're not reading Das Kapital, right? You know, they're not going to be the finished product of a socialist with deep knowledge of conflict theory. But what they do need to know is
that there's more YouTube channels than Sky News. I think that's one of the things they need to know.
And it's just sort of like, if you're getting them going, you know, if you're talking about Pauline Hanson's voting record, or if you say, actually, you know, she did this and she did this, and they go, oh, that's pretty fucked, hey?
Yeah.
Like,
but at least you know where she stands, mate. That's what they always say.
You know what is interesting about her, though? There's a bit of a glitch in the matrix, is like sometimes she'll vote for like along union policies.
Yeah, that is interesting sometimes, and it confuses the hell out of me. There was
I mean, to me, it shows that at least she's not as intense as like, I don't know, like
sitting in that van is having an effect on Miss Love.
Well, look, I mean, I'll put it this.
I'm just saying,
he did go to the Ramadan market.
He went.
He could have decided not to go.
But I mean,
jeez.
It's that's an interesting point.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like basically, if a Teal independent wins, what I sort of think is that puts out a message that this narrative that One Nation's inevitable, they're going to be the new opposition, they can be beaten.
Yeah,
they can be beaten
for sure. And also, like,
it just has to happen once. It really does.
And also, like, I don't know how we should also say this. I know there's like a whole thing of like, don't call them deplorables, they'll get elected. And it's like, but there was a poll that I recently saw, which is so telling, dude. The question on that poll was, what do you think Australia needs? Minor changes to politics, major changes to politics, or let the thing burn down? And the funny thing is, dude, about 15 to 20% people said burn the thing down.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's because there's definitely a sense of frustration.
Absolutely.
That I've missed out in this economy. But then there's also like, fuck it, I'm gonna fuck it up for you as well.
Trump
it's like, if I'm gonna be in this situation, then everyone's got to be in this situation.
Exactly. It's like,
and then you can't reason with that. That's just like,
oh no, that's tough.
That's tough.
And that's sort of, you know, we know that, you know, you're not winning someone who just wants to burn the thing down, because, you know, that's not my argument as well. You know, my argument's obviously, you know, again, we're trying as much as possible to, you know, base ourselves on the facts, the logic. I do think you're right. You know, our golden rule is never insult the voter. So we won't, and this is the big thing that I find in like US politics that's so toxic. You look at all the content, it's like Democrat voters be like, Republican voters be like. If I was called, you know, all the bloody slurs under the sun, It's like, oh, I was a hardcore lefty, but then when I was called this and this and this, that's when I saw the light. No one's saying that, you know?
Dude, I need your optimism. As I get older, I'm becoming more and more like Osho, you know? Like, the people are retarded. I am becoming
that's
that
such
guy.
a good bit. I love that.
Dude. I'm slowly goes like, am I becoming Osho? Do you know who Osho is, Miss?
Nah.
You don't know that guy? He used to be a god man kind of.
Yeah. Really? Is he Sikh? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Nah, he's Hindu, but he's dead.
Right.
In the 70s or 80s, he was like this big guru in the US, and he had a massive movement.
What's that guy that I like? You know the guy who rides
Satguru. Do you know Satguru?
You know Satguru?
Satguru is in like the Sikh preacher.
Yeah.
My mother's Sikh, so
but it's that guy. But he's also, is he Sikh? I thought he was Hindu as well. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, that's who he's talking about.
Mum, if you're watching, please fact check us in the comments.
Yeah. But he loves him.
No, I like him because he's just kind of like, just chill out and ride motorbikes. I'm like, yes.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah.
That's my kind of
but
politics.
I've got a really absurdist take. I'm just sort of like, sure, we can, it's bleak. But let's just scream into the night and do a couple of backflips on our way down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and you know what? If that means that, we somehow get out of this unscathed or in an okay position, I'm like, cool, at least I had fun doing it. And if we fail, at least I had fun doing it. So that's kind of what keeps me going.
Yeah, man, for sure. And also, like, the One Nation aspect of it is, firstly, I think we're always comparing it to the US because Trump got in, but it's such a bad comparison
it's my biggest pet peeve.
So many reasons. One, they don't have compulsory voting. So like about 40% or 35% of the fucking population of the US just doesn't vote because they're not bothered, which is different over here. Secondly, then we have preferences. There's a lot of barriers. And I think our system would probably, imagine if things go really bad, right?
Yeah.
Our system would mimic perhaps France.
I agree.
Than the US.
I agree. They do a protracted version of what we do.
Yeah.
They do runoff elections.
And so what we've noticed in France is that the one thing that can create this coalition, that you were talking about, I love the Teals, I like the Greens, I like the Labour as well, but that coalition will only come into being if they have the boogeyman of like the far right.
What was his name? Jean-Luc Mélenchon. He did a really, really good, he was the left-wing candidate for, I think it's La France Insoumise, and he got this massive coalition together when Macron called the early elections.
Yeah.
And they beat the National Rally resoundingly.
Yeah.
And I look at that and I'm like, this is what happens when we do not... I mean, obviously, sure, let's infight all we like in the meantime, but if we turn our attention to One Nation and the Liberals and collectively go, fuck off, like actually fuck off, we're good. Then we can go back and argue and, debate the laws all we like. And then, every 3 years, we can all come to the consensus that at least we're not... at least, we're not the MPs for the Liberals and One Nation. I'm happy with that, man. I'm good with that. Sure, I know there are a lot of people that might disagree with me, but that, for me, I'm sweet.
Hey, what do you think about did you check out those, apparently there's some policies that have been leaked for Labour where they're talking about getting rid of negative gearing.
We did a post about that today.
You did? What do you think about that?
Oh, mate, look, I initially was worried about that because... I love it. I want to preface it by saying I love it. I was worried because obviously Bill Shorten took that to the election in 2019 and lost. But I think there's been enough time for people to realise just how much we've missed out on. And I think people as well are starting to understand, well, actually, how can I benefit from negative gearing if I don't even own a house? And realistically, the amount... I'm not sure how much people know about negative gearing, but compared to your average tax return where you can get maybe a couple of $100 off of it, you get thousands to tens of thousands of dollars reduced in your income tax burden from negative gearing.
Yeah.
But you can only do that if you can afford to absorb the loss. If you can run your rentals at a loss and cover the rest of it and then cover the, the gap, how many people can really afford that? Not many. And the only people that can really properly benefit from that are people who own houses outright, can use the rental yield as profit for the houses that they make a loss off of. And it's you add it all together and you're like, holy shit, these guys, this is a massive money glitch, tax reduction hack for the wealthy. But
it's not just, okay, so you're right. I mean, primarily the benefits of this is for the very wealthy that have hundreds of properties, But I was looking at some stats. So about 30% of Australia rents
Yeah.
Right. So that means 70% of Australia has a home ownership. Now they're not investment property portfolio holders.
Yeah.
But about 1/5 of Australians have an investment property.
Yeah.
I think perhaps the Bill Shorten issue was there.
And yeah, on top of that as well, 1% of property investors, I think this is about as of 2 years ago, own 24% of property investments.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's absurd.
And that's the part that they miss out on, which is that's
crazy.
a quarter of all property investments are owned by about, I think it's like 19,000 people.
Whoa, that's insane.
Yeah, it's like either you have no property or you
Yeah.
have 25 kind of a situation.
Crazy.
Like you're looking at somewhere like, I don't even know, like the population of, someone please correct me, the population of like Sale or Malakuta or something like that. You know, like that's a tiny percentage of people that get a massive benefit. But I do think I think that there's a lot more license for it. And I think Labor's a little bit scared. I think they should go for it.
I would
really
be
think
too.
they should.
I think there's a change of calculus.
I'd be scared too. Yeah.
I think they believe that there's enough Gen Zs that are now over 18.
Yeah.
Where the pool of people without houses that are concerned about it is greater now. I think that's one of the analysis which is forcing them to do this. But it's a scary proposition, man. You know, Australians, they love their property and negative gearing. And there's also, and they're all like would-be millionaires, you know? They're poor. They don't have one, but what if I had 20 properties? Would I not get capital gains then?
That is my Roman Empire.
Yeah, but bro, you're on dole right now.
The notion of the aspirational Australian, I will die on this hill. The aspirational Australian does not exist. It is a figment of the media's imagination. What they do is...
Maybe it existed once.
Well, they sell a dream that is close enough to see, but too far away to actually reach. And they say, well, you can get this if you vote for us. You never will, because that's the whole point of the aspirational Australian. It simultaneously includes everyone and no one at the same time. They sell this dream, and this was something that I think Scott Morrison did really well and John Howard did really well. They sold this dream to the middle class of Australia that you can become like us if you vote for us, but they kept it just out of reach with things like capital gains tax discounts and with the extensive negative gearing that we've got going on in Australia. So I do think it's a real sort of double think thing where it both exists and doesn't at the same time and includes everyone and no one at the same time.
That's kind of interesting, actually. Yeah.
And then I can imagine there would be another demographic, which is like millennials obviously have the lowest amount of home ownership compared to the previous generations and stuff, right? But there's a lot of millennials that probably have bought. Yeah. And they're going to be pissed off about this. Bro, how come when it comes to me, all of this changes?
Yeah, well, I've got friends who paid off their HECS, for example. And, you know, they were like, well, I've just missed out, you know, before the 20% HECS discount.
We just paid off my missus's HECS, by the way, for a very similar reason.
You're saying
it wasn't a lot, but
you're saying like they have paid off their tax before that discount came into a
And
that serves you right for trying to pay it off.
It helps you like increase your borrowing power as well, right? So
and also you earn a little bit more money too. Like especially if you start to, you know, really work your way up in a career and really start to gain a little bit more income. Like, you know, the tax break can be pretty substantial. It can help. It can really help.
Oh yeah, dude. The property game, no doubt, is a massive money making thing. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
As soon as you get into it, you're like, what?
Yeah.
You're like, I don't have to pay any tax on it.
But doesn't that only work when you have more than one house or no?
With capital gains.
So currently you can have as many investment properties. So not only do you have to not pay, there's the negative gearing, but also the capital gains is like when you sell that property, then you get a 50% discount.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So under John Howard, he halved the amount that the government taxes you on the profit. So
so these are heavy incentives already, and then the property market for the last 40 years just keeps growing. So then you've got that long-term trend. So it would be honestly foolish for you to invest in something that actually brings value to society.
Yeah. And say for example, I don't know what the capital gains tax percentage is, but you make, you know, a capital gain of $200,000 and... Well, actually, let's go $300,000.
Is that profit on a place? Is that what you mean?
Profit on a place. If you make a profit of $300K and the government hypothetically taxed you, you know, half of that, $150K, all of a sudden the Howard government comes in and goes, we're going to half the amount that we're going to tax you. So all of a sudden you have an extra $75K to play with. That can be the difference for a lot of property investors between getting another deposit and not.
Yeah.
And then that could be a big enough deposit for them to honestly pay down the mortgage just through rental income.
Yeah.
Because as we know, rent is quite expensive in pretty much everywhere. But yeah, that capital gains tax discount is what makes a lot of investors more more competitive. I actually did want to mention as well, so we did a post about this actually literally hours before we recorded, about how much the media is obviously against the capital gains and negative gearing reforms. It's interesting because realestate.com.au is obviously owned by News Corp.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And a lot of people, in fact, I'm actually going to get this up because we put this out today in terms of just how much of a dark money-making scheme this is.
Oh, yeah.
So realestate.com.au and News Corp, well, News Corp owns this place called REA Listings. They also own a mortgage brokerage called Mortgage Choice. Now, when you think about it as well, according to the Australian Council of Social Service, so ACOS, property investor loans are about $100,000 larger on average than loans taken out by first home buyers. So they've got a little bit more money to play with. Now, what does that mean? If you're a mortgage broker, you get a larger brokerage fee. You get a little bit more extra from property investors.
Right.
And
it's an absolute scam.
News Corp owns this company. So they get a little something because why would they want first home buyers in? Because they're not going to get the brokerage fees. They're not going to get the brokerage profits from a smaller loan from first home buyers. They want property investors to be investing in property because they're the ones that can take out the larger loans. They can afford that. They can absorb that cost.
And then they have a media organisation that can promote that.
Exactly right. Yeah. And that's how the media... because the media
and then they
has
also own plenty of bodies in Parliament that can help them promote that as well.
Exactly.
They've got every sector covered, dude.
Damn.
I mean, there are, I think, it's one politician in the Victorian State Parliament who's got Victorian Liberal. It's got 15 properties, 17 properties. Yeah. There were two politicians.
Dude, most of them have it.
Oh, it's absurd. All Liberal, Labor, everyone.
Yeah, everyone.
Oh, it's absurd.
Everyone does.
When someone's got 6 properties or someone's got 60, for me, it makes no difference.
Yeah.
I'm good with one, bro.
I agree. Yeah.
Bro, you hang out with boomers and you'll very quickly realize that a lot of them are way richer than you think.
Oh, it's absurd. Yeah.
And they don't have 2 properties. They have fucking suburbs, and you're like, what did you? I used to be a brickie in the 80s, mate, and just made good investments. I was like, oh my god, that's crazy.
It's sorry that I was playing FIFA 11, for the love of God.
Yeah.
And they tell you, it's like,
I was tearing it up as Kevin Doyle for Wolverhampton Wanderers back in the day. Instead of investing in property. You know,
it is crazy hearing those stats is crazy.
So I'm scared for Labor, honestly, if they do bring this into next election. Yeah. I understand how this is something needs to be done about it. We've advocated for these kind of, policies for a long time on this pod, constantly saying that this essentially a casino business we're running in property. But at the same time, I don't know if this is a winnable policy.
Well, it's interesting because I think it's happening in Victoria as well, because Victoria's actually it's not cheap. But it's the least expensive.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for me, for context, I lived in South Bank, which is the equivalent of living in the CBD.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the middle of COVID, I was paying $250 a week on rent, $15 a week on rent.
Whoa.
In COVID, obviously. So it was, obviously, there were lots of vacancies. Now, my sister moved into Collingwood. That's the equivalent of getting a place probably around about Surrey Hills here. She's paying $325 a week, her and her partner each.
Yeah.
That is, you're not looking at that in Surrey Hills.
No, absolutely.
Even in Newtown or
nowhere.
Exactly.
Even outside of Sydney, nowhere.
It's not great in Melbourne, but the fact that you can even do that, and this is with, people want the Allen government to do more, and this is what's happening with the policies that are currently in place.
Yeah, and one of the big reasons in my view why that's happened is obviously they've put these extra stamp duty taxes, and it's still profitable, if I may say so, if you do the numbers in Melbourne. But the thing is, as a protest, because all of these investors are so used to basically paying zero taxes.
Yes, exactly.
They, as a kind of punishment to Labor, were investors bailed on the Melbourne market. Right. They moved to Adelaide, screw that up. They're even higher.
Bro, I got mugged in Adelaide.
Screwed Perth hard. Perth is so expensive now, and it's
crazy.
It's if you own a mine, you can afford stuff. But that was all the investors going to these places.
Well,
and it fixed Melbourne. It made it better.
The property prices have actually plateaued.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and also it kind of goes to show, you know, even with the policies that have been done, that's what's keeping property prices level. You know, there's still a lot that needs to be done to bring them down. And again, this is another thing the media always does. They never talk about what happens to properties once they're sold. They always say, oh, that's a rental disappearing off the market. I see that as something a first home buyer could get, or another landlord could get, or a new landlord who hasn't, you know, been investing in a time where they've gotten a free run with basically, you know, relatively effectively zero tax or minimal tax. You know, what happens to the properties? They don't disappear into the nether. You know, they're still there. The building still stands. You know, they get bought up. They get bought up by first home buyers or by other investors who are willing to, you know, work on a smaller profit margin, because that's what we're talking about. We are talking about still profit margins for them. And again, they always talk about, you know, oh, this is a bad thing. It's like most of them are making a gain. Most of them are making a profit.
Yeah.
You know,
like, maybe they'll have to sell their properties and, God forbid, invest in something that's productive.
It's like whoop-de-doo. Like, you know,
oh my God, he'll have to open a factory and hire people.
Exactly. Yeah, right. These landlords that, you know, the Herald Sun are putting out sob stories about, you know, they're making more in capital gain than most people have in their savings or in their annual income. You know, oh no, I'm only making $80,000 a year. Like, that's above average. That's an above average income before tax.
Did I know someone, and I'm not even making this up, they got a shitty property, like, as in by shitty, I mean, not a high, expensive one, right? Below 500,000. Just in 1 year, their income from that, just capital gain income, is more than their actual fucking salary.
Exactly.
And that's, by the way, in Melbourne.
Yeah. Exactly.
The lowest growing.
The place where it's meant to be worst.
They've rented it. No, but the rent out doesn't even. The rent money is different. I'm talking about just the value gain. In 1 year, it was more than what he was earning 9 to 5.
And this is the place the media says is the worst place to be a landlord.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, we're having a laugh here. You know, what are we doing? So
it's just slightly leveling the playing field.
And this is why it does. I mean, obviously the Victorian Labor government's quite tired. They're quite old. But this is something that is legitimately gaining traction in Victoria. So I do worry. Again, I do think that Labor should just absolutely give it a stab. I do think once they've got to win this next election, whether it be minority, majority, whatever, I think they'll win a majority because of how the state of the opposition right now. But they've actually got to start to see the effects. People have got to see, hey, this is actually going to help me buy a house. Because if it lasts one term and landlords sell up and the media gets to push this message again federally, Labor's going to lose. But if they can still survive, you know, again, with whoever, whether it be support on their own or with the Greens or whoever, then I think people will start to realise, hey, this is actually not that bad.
Yeah.
And that's really going to bring people back into the fold and be like, hey, this is something that government can do that'll be good for me.
Yeah, and it's scary for any government, Labor or Liberal, whatever. Apparently 50% of Australian wealth is in property, Australian property.
Yeah.
It's also an unproductive asset as well.
Oh my God, it's so unproductive, but at the same time, it's too big to fail now.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
if there's a collapse in, you know, property, there's a lot of young people thinking like, oh, can't wait for that. But that's 50% of Australia's like wealth. And those people, you know, I don't know how much their pouring power would be in such a scenario, you know? So it's not like all of a sudden you can own everything. It's going to be a catastrophic situation. So they need to deflate it.
Yeah.
And they have to do it like in a way that doesn't pop it, but also like they don't lose elections. It's a tough tightrope walk.
Yeah, it is a really, really tough one. And again, I think, you know, it is very much a bed that has been made for a very long time, you know, and it really sucks because how do you do this without tanking the economy?
Yeah.
But is capital gains just the value of what your profit? The profit that you make off the value of your house? Is that all it is?
Yeah.
But that's just that's always like that's like just going to rise naturally, isn't that? I mean, that's always gonna be a
but
thing.
it doesn't have to like double every 2 years kind of thing.
Yeah. Right.
I guess the reason people do it a lot is because it is seen as a safer asset than say like stocks or crypto or any other asset you want to, or commodities.
But I'm saying there's no universe where you'll buy a house in Australia and then it will not appreciate in value.
It can happen.
It can. A lot of apartments and units in Victoria, like they don't really make much capital gain.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
It has, for the last 30 years, I think consistently house prices on average have risen. But there have been like 2008 in the US as an example where it actually collapse. That's what
Yeah.
everyone's afraid of, honestly.
Yes.
That's the.
But I mean, like the
nightmare
US one was a
scenario.
little bit different because they were approving loans for anyone with a pulse and a firm handshake.
Yeah, that was.
It's
yeah.
like, oh, you're in like.
But do you believe? Don't you believe that Australian banks are over leveraged in that as well?
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you think it was a mistake for Albo reducing the deposit thing for
Honestly, I do think it is a bit of a band-aid.
Yeah,
Because
it
I
is,
know
yeah.
a lot of people who probably couldn't afford the interest repayments on a 5% deposit, but couldn't a 20, but they can't afford the 20% deposit.
Yeah.
So, I do think financially they are a lot more stressed. Obviously, they're much more vulnerable to interest rate hikes. So Albo's taken a real gamble here that interest rates are going to remain, where they are.
That's not gonna. That's looking bad.
Yeah. That's where I'm a little bit worried is because I know a lot of people who, not a lot of people, but I know some people who've taken advantage of the 5% deposit scheme. Great. They've got a house, but they've really got to work their asses off for these next couple of years.
And man, this is like I think
And,
there's another perception that somehow I don't know people are buying too many DVDs or something that's causing the inflation.
DVDs.
I don't know, whatever. Like consumer spending is what's like people are going to the mall and stuff, which no one's doing. But I
Damn, is
think
the Polar Express a recession indicator?
But don't you like most? I completely understand why inflation is going up again.
Yeah.
I was at a nerd party the other day, and all these people were engineers and they were working in AI. All of them are working in AI, and they were telling me about the amount of money that's being spent into in these data centers.
Yeah.
And how they're being traded these professionals, AI professionals, like as if they're like basketball ticket players, like ridiculous amount of money. There's so much money that's being invested in this.
Yeah.
Of course, inflation is going to go up. But none of it is coming from like regular people. It's coming from like either the government spending money into this or like really big businesses that are like, it feels like a gold rush for them, right? So it's like you keep spending because if you don't spend now, somehow you're going to miss out or something.
Yeah.
So there's like insane amounts of money, and which is why I feel like this inflation is not going to get in control. I don't think an interest rate rise is going to stop this inflation. This is like just a mega trend until this AI monster that we're creating.
Yeah, I do think we're sort of going to be at that little bit where it's like the cash rate's going to go up and down and up and down and up and down, but I really don't think it's going to substantially go down for the next little while.
Interest rates?
Yeah, interest rates. Yeah, cash rate and interest rate by extension. Yeah. So
I'm too much of a dummy to understand how that works, but
it's
I don't like it.
Yeah, you don't like it going up, but I
don't like it going up. Take that.
Number go up, not good.
Put that on your bloody Insta page.
That sounds exactly like my dad. So my dad's a GP, and like he had his biggest gripe is with how healthcare is obviously being tackled and the cost of medicine and stuff, and obviously what I talk about is often like the cut and dry electoral stuff or media bias or liberals, but like he'll talk about this and he's like, you better put this on your page on Instagram, and I'm like, thanks dad, thank you.
You're like, GPs are suffering.
My father-in-law has this thing because I do Friendly Jordy's merch, so every time he comes up with something he'll always say like, there's a t-shirt idea for you.
Give us one.
Oh, I can't remember.
An original
like,
experience, have we?
Is it just like Ned Kelly with two guns being like hands off?
It's probably just like some landlord like holding on to like property taxes and protecting the renter.
Yeah.
Like, no one talks about this guy.
Save the landlord. No one talks
somebody
about that.
please think of the billionaires.
They're people too. Man, it is crazy. I always ask these guys. I ask Jordan regularly. I'm like, did Howard have a long-term plan kind of with this? And Jordan was like, yeah, his long-term plan was if you can't afford it, move out of the city. And I'm like, but that doesn't seem like a sustainable long-term plan. He's like, well, it's a plan. And I'm like, oh, okay.
I mean, I don't know what the long-term vision was. Again, electorally, I do think the whole thing of aspirational Australian really, it meant that there was a dream that could be sold. Like I said, not something that anyone could access, given how quickly.
Well, they could access it when he introduced it, don't you reckon?
I mean, yeah, but then the graph went up so much.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, we probably for the first. That's one of the reasons why it took off so quickly. Exactly, because initially people could access it.
Exactly, yeah.
And they saw massive returns on their investment.
Yeah.
And they saw massive profits from these. But then all of a sudden, if the property value is going up, eventually no one's going to be able to access
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
That's what I mean. It didn't
Exactly
seem
right.
to be a
Yeah.
long-term
Yeah, yeah.
strategy. It was like, just move where you can afford it. you
Yeah,
know?
exactly right. Yeah.
And in the process, you did create a monster that, is now impossible to curtail again.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, again, I don't like people superimposing global trends in Australian politics, but it's like, Howard really was our Thatcher, wasn't he? Like, it's so funny. You look at graphs of like, people put graphs of different statistics and they put Margaret Thatcher or Ronald Reagan's face on it and they're just like, always go up or always go down. I think you'd do the same with Howard. I mean, again, house prices relative to wage growth, exactly the same thing. I'm sure there are other aspects of Australian life where if you put Howard winning the election in the 90s and then you put whatever graph with like, cost of living, all those sorts of things, it would go to the shit. It's like I watched this YouTuber called Jimmy the Giant, and he's British, but it's so funny. He talks about social issues in the UK and policy, and he's like, every single video is, here was this really good thing that was happening after the war. It all changed when Margaret Thatcher got elected. And it's like every single video. I'm like, wait, for the Thatcher bit. There it is.
Dude, she did really raw dog the world economy.
Oh my God, she did. Yes.
She fucked it hard, dude.
I remember.
An inspiration for Reagan,
Yeah.
An inspiration, yeah.
I used to work in, a hospital and retail, and I met a couple of Scottish people, and I remember the anniversary of her death. Like, they would always be a little bit more chirpy. These were Scots. They weren't here to mess around, and they'd always be like, they'd always have a bit of a pep in their step when the anniversary of her death rolled around. I'm not even. I wish I was making that up.
No, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand. Like, from my understanding, gutted all of the.
But I do think, like,
Commonwealth's
did you watch some of her like interviews? She was boss though, and there's like a weird admiration. It's like, I hate you, but at the same time, you are boss. Have you seen her video where she's like refusing to clap with the kids?
I haven't seen that.
Oh my God, it is the greatest fucking
Clap
thing
about
ever.
what?
It's like, so there's a bunch of audience, right? And she's a really proper, serious person. And the host is like, kind of like, and he's like, okay, so what we do after the interview, just as a mode of inspiration, we all stand up and we jump and we clap together. And Margaret was like, I will do no such thing.
I'm surprised the kids had the energy after she snatched their milk away. Like, Jesus Christ.
Oh,
she
God.
hated kids.
She hated, dude, it clearly, and she also just, I think, hated fun.
Yeah,
'Cause
yes.
her thing was like, she was like, I will do it. What the hell? I'm a prime minister. How could I do such a thing?
Yeah.
And I was like, at the same time, I was like, dude, okay, I hate you, but at the same time, it's boss that you're a fucking prime minister and you don't care about popularity whatsoever. He's like, I'm not doing this ridiculous thing.
Like, my partner's Irish, so I can't say anything good about Margaret Thatcher.
There you go.
I also won't either. So.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Yeah, it was a weird thing. Like, they obviously were big thinkers and they changed the economy and shifted it to, I guess, banking. Like not a dumb person, but like, again, it seems like it's like, I always wonder with those kind of figures, if you could ask them, what do you think is going to happen in like 10 years or 20 years?
Yeah.
Like if you'll get this massive bump in the economy and you've reshifted it and you've put it into these particular sectors, but like, what if banking fails? What if
They're facing that now. I mean,
Exactly,
banking hasn't failed, but it's lost its relevance in this new tech age. And look at what's happening in England.
That's what I mean. I would have loved to have asked.
That's actually what's caused Nigel Farage and reform to be so popular.
But did no one ask her that?
Yeah.
Did no one say what? Did no one ask her what?
Maybe no one was thinking about it at the time.
Well, no one could have predicted exactly how things are. No one would have known.
Yeah, but
It
if
is-
you make,
yeah.
if you change the like how economy fundamentally behaves, surely
No, look, there were people, including Labour Party at the time, that was arguing that, by cutting the social welfare system, by doing all of this thing and cutting taxes, you're going to make things worse. Obviously, they didn't know exactly how it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
I mean, they knew that a lot of people that wouldn't be able to afford stuff as a consequence of austerity. But they like sort of told them like, but you'll pay less taxes, so it'll all even out.
Right.
But obviously now, 30 whatever odd years later, we know exactly how it.
And I think as well, it was really masked by the fact that it was a lot of short-term gain. So especially with the council houses policy that Margaret Thatcher introduced. Obviously, what did that do? It meant that, well, are you guys familiar?
Yeah. Well,
it meant that people who couldn't buy a home could buy their home. But then, I mean, you look at the long-term effects with regards to shortages and the fact that no new council housing is getting built. Well, of course that was going to happen. But again, no one really cared at the time because everyone's getting that sugar hit. It's like, now everyone can buy it,
Right.
Everyone who lives in a council flat can get their own flat, but obviously people weren't thinking about that at the time because they're getting their sweet, sweet property.
And then the
And
next,
by God, do they need those council flats again?
yes, holy shit, they do.
next few generations, they can't afford it.
Exactly right. Yeah. So, but I do think it's interesting in the UK because, again, they've got a really big rise, obviously, with Reform UK. But I think there's some parallels with regards to, at least from, again, the dry electoral polling side of things, what happens. And I think what happens here is, like, Reform UK, they got out to a pretty healthy lead in the polls, about, I think, 10, 15%. That's now single digits. It's gradually, and you look at, like, sort of the overall trends, they're losing a lot of their vote now. Like,
Dude, if I'm not even kidding when I say this. If things go the same way and Reform, let's say, does stay as relevant as they are now, I can't imagine UK being together.
Yeah,
I think there's going to be a split. Wales, Scotland are going to want to out. And honestly, if I was them, I'd be like, dude, there's a shit show going on in England. I need out of this. Why would you? Like, they're just on a suicide mission.
I yearn for Irish reunification.
Yeah.
Again, my missus has made me so gal-pilled. It's insane.
It's just Belfast, though, isn't it? It's just that area that's the UK.
Northern Ireland,
Yeah, that part of Northern Ireland, yeah. I mean, there's obviously your sectarian divides, but I can't imagine. They voted Remain. They voted Remain.
Yeah.
And if you get a hard Brexit party, but I mean, it's basically UKIP dressed up in teal. If they get in, I think there's license for reunification.
But isn't that just symbolic?
And you can already see, like, dude,
I don't know.
Dude, the nationalist parties, the Scottish Nationalist Party has been in power for like
ages.
Ever since they had that referendum.
Yeah.
And I bet you they're regretting their vote now.
And in Wales, Plaid Cymru,
exactly.
Wales used to be like a Labour stronghold. And there was an electorate called Caerphilly. And I was talking to one of my Welsh friends who's travelling through here. And I was like, holy shit, Cymru won Caerphilly. She's not really engaged in politics. And she was like, but that's like Caerphilly is you think about that electorate, you think Labour. And they lost it for the first time in like 100 years. And the electorates in the UK are old.
The irony is Reform, who wants to keep the country together, is probably going to break it up.
Yeah, they will. But I do think as well, like, the thing with Reform, and as well, like, there's that new Restore Britain or whatever it is. There's a further right-wing party that's come about.
Really? Restore?
And because of, the vote splitting there, because there is such a thing as spoiler votes in their system, they're actually getting kind of screwed over. And they're all just splitting into these like different messes of you're not right wing enough.
What's
you're not
Restore UK's like policy plan?
Restore Britain, I think, is what they call.
What is it? Is it just like bring in change? It's literally the money with monopoly money. I like the little guy with the hat.
It is literally
slavery.
It is literally just slavery. Like even more extreme. Like Nigel Farage has kind of been very wishy-washy on the whole, deportation stuff. Like he will do it, but he's been a little bit more wishy-washy. Whereas they're just like, we're going to deport the foreigners. Like, it's fucked. It is that.
Like actual citizens as well? Or just...
I think so.
Okay.
Like, that sort of stuff. Like, I could be wrong.
That's some like Third Reich shit.
It's very... this is very cursory. I could be wrong, so please anyone correct me. But, like, they're just very, very extreme. And that's an interesting phenomenon, is that, like, I do think, especially when you get to the more extreme end, there's going to be sort of a race to the bottom in terms of, you're not perfect enough from that right-wing sort of perspective. But what I do think is the bigger problem for Reform, how are they going to... the UK election terms are long. They're long.
5 years.
How does Nigel Farage stay relevant for that period of time? You get the outrage, and initially a lot of people will be outraged. But again, even if you're not really engaged in politics, you're going to stop and think whether something's right for you. I think the same thing in Australian politics. One Nation has peaked very early. Very, very early. Again, Angus Taylor has temporarily arrested One Nation's rise a little bit. You do see it in a few polls. They're sort of plateaued off a little bit. It's too early to say whether he's going to do that long term. But for One Nation, their momentum's kind of stalled a little bit. But the reason that they're so popular right now as well, partly, is because they're dominating the media landscape. They're good for ratings. They've got to keep that going for all of this year. And if they do that, they've got to keep it going for all of next year.
Yeah.
And if they do that, they've got to keep it going for another 4 months. And then a campaign,
right,
and then debates and all that sort of stuff. That's my question for One Nation. Can they do it for the next 2.5 years?
My guess is no.
Yeah, and I do think...
because they are not really famous for,
Angus Taylor
competency.
was the absolute dream for Anthony Albanese because he's right-wing enough, in my opinion, that he takes a lot of One Nation's vote off. But that man is a walking liability. He's a
Dude,
liability.
I tend to disagree with that. I think, like I said with the France stuff, that if One Nation is de facto opposition, you can form a coalition. If Angus Taylor actually becomes a de facto opposition, I think you'll see a big fragmentation on the left side of politics as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You will see perhaps actually more a resurgent Greens, maybe some.
I see that. I do see that.
Because there's even now, Albo has a difficult job, which is doing this balancing act, right? On one hand, you've got people moving towards One Nation, which means there's a certain part of what was considered to be center-right, which has been vacated.
Yeah.
Now, it is very enticing for any government to be
That's
like, we need some of that. Because it's also a very winnable demographic for elections. But once you do that, like you can already see with the ISIS brides and stuff, you can see that it's moving there. There's a gap there that needs to be fulfilled. But when that happens, you'll see a vacuum on the left side of politics.
I agree exactly with that.
And so the only way you can convince that left side of politics to still keep in the coalition is if you threaten them with the fascists, which is hard right. If you see that Angus Taylor is the opposition, I think it'll be really hard to keep that coalition.
Yeah. Now, I think it's really interesting because I think, for the longest time, the Liberals, because compulsory voting means that elections are won in the centre in Australia.
Yeah, it's a great thing, eh?
You've got to win the middle. And I think the Liberals historically were the best at doing that. They were very good at that. But because they've abandoned it, Labor's kind of there almost, I would actually say it's a one-horse race in the middle. And they're kind of just there now in the centre, getting obviously now a pretty solid share of the primary vote, considering the decline that major parties have had around the world. I mean, I think they've stayed relatively between the 35% mark for the last 20 years. Like, that's kind of remarkable, really.
Labor.
And they've kind of shifted to the centre. But you're right. It means that people maybe who sit in the left of Labor, who are Greens curious, understandably probably would feel a bit politically homeless. Now, this is the part where I wonder with the Greens, do they have the political communication skills? Do they have the ability to scoop them up? Now, I think they've lost probably their best communicator in Max Chandler Mather. I've said this privately. I think he can rile up an audience. He can get people. He gets bums on seats, and he gets people listening. That's the thing that he does very well. Now, my question to the Greens is, who's that going to be? They don't have that figure. They don't have their Adam Band. Larissa Waters is, very new.
Will you step up and answer the call?
The Greens, no, I'm good.
But
I'm just saying that if they play their cards right, they could have success.
I absolutely think they can. And again, I think if they get like their version of a Zach Polanski, like in like the UK leader of the Greens, I think they're going to do extremely well. And I think they should be very excited for that. Yeah. But they've got to get that person. And I don't know who that is yet.
And there's plenty of time before the next election.
Exactly
for
right.
this entire thing to play out.
Dude, would you ever run? You're pretty good.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
You'd be great. I'm just in politics.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. But I've always said that, it's such an intensely personal thing. Like, I can't imagine...
It'd be exhausting.
Yeah. I can't imagine having... I think Jordan sort of spoken or maybe hinted at it where it's just like, you're right, it is exhausting, but it's like every aspect of your life just falls under a microscope.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I could do that. I would feel very uncomfortable with,
getting
nitpicked like my family falling under the microscope, my partner falling under the microscope.
Your footy team falling under the microscope?
They're already under the microscope.
And all for what?
Mate, North Melbourne's shocking. Again, like I said, pre-show, women's team's great, men's team, not good.
And all for what? 25 million goblins.
What do you mean?
Fuck. Dude, my thing is I don't want to be a politician because I don't think I have that optimism anymore. That I look at I'm not trying to create a gloomy picture, but I just think the political process that we're living through, not just in Australia, everywhere, is so fucking toxic and trash right now that good voices are going to drown out no matter what you do.
Legitimately, this is one of the reasons why I still have a day job outside of politics.
Yeah.
Like that I have a 9 to 5, that I still coach footy, is just like, I go to training on a Tuesday night and I get there and it's like I forget about politics. Even during the election campaign, I'm setting up cones for the umps to train on, and I'm talking to the boys. I'm talking to the coach. Putting together. We go into the rooms later and we do a presentation. in that 2.5 hours, I forget about politics.
Yeah, it's important.
And it's like, for a brief 2 hours, I'm happy, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And even,
Totally.
like legitimately. And even, you know, when I work with, you know, I work in, youth mental health research, and when I'm working with the kids and, you know, they're talking about their stuff, and, you know, I'm really, you know, having a chat with them, figuring out what's going on with them. And I'm just like, actually, you know what? Like, there is more to life, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's also good too that you have a bit of connection to the outside world, you see outside of politics. And again, this is a rule with TPA, is that if you want to come and work for us, you don't work in politics or journalism or anything like that.
Yeah.
We want people who look, think, act, and sort of have the same values as someone who sits outside the political space, which in reality is most people. And in a country of compulsory voting, you know, that is inherently most people.
Yeah.
And how else are you going to communicate with people who sit outside of politics than by being someone who sits outside of politics? So that's a really core aspect of what we do. And we need people like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good on you. Bring in some extra viewpoints that, you
Exactly.
know, sometimes
Yeah.
it becomes an echo chamber.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, bro, for being here.
No worries,
We've run
man.
out of time.
Yeah.
This has been a delightful conversation.
We could go for it for
Oh,
ages.
mate. This
eh?
is,
Yeah.
again, fantastic. Like, absolute pleasure
No,
to be
thank
on,
you.
man.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you are watching this, make sure you look at the description box, listen to their podcast, as well as follow them on Instagram for Toilet Paper Australia.
Fantastic. Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
man. Thanks for coming.
See you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bonjour.